Thank you to the source of creation, to the birther of all the universes, for being the life of this energy healing webinar. And thank you to all the expressions equally precious, infinite diversity of expressions of that oneness. Thank you to the ancestors and the collective of Earth, the collective. Thank you to the divine in each person attending this webinar and each person who will ever view this webinar for adding their light and their divinity to this collective endeavor, this collective inquiry into advanced topics in energy healing. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for the time that we're in. It's very kind of dynamic and very interesting time. All right, so tonight's webinar, or this morning's webinar, is a little different from previous because we sent out this study guide ahead of time, and the idea was that we wanted to create more order because it became evident, and thank you to the contributions. I have to give honor where honor is due. A dear friend of mine who's a physicist and I were talking about energy healing physics and Vedic science, and he was pointing out that, or he had this insight about flow, about light of being flowing, and how orderliness and love work together to support that increase in the flow of light. And it was brilliant. And so I had the thought, and we've been thinking for a while, that we have all this nice technology. So maybe we could utilize the technology more intelligently in order to create more order and thereby allow a greater flow of information and healing and concentration of information for you guys, because the idea is always to upgrade and improve the quality of what we're providing. So for that reason, in the email, it was mentioned about panelists and everybody seeing each other, but we worked with that technology a little bit, and there were a couple of pitfalls that we ran into. One is, if you are promoted to a panelist, then all the other panelists can see you, but people who are not promoted to panelists cannot see you unless you speak. So only the speaker is seen by those who are not panelists. So there's that. There's the fact that there is a certain body of people who come in on my webinars and make up a fairly large percentage of the people in my webinars who wish to remain anonymous. And so I don't want to make anybody feel self-conscious or even endanger anybody's position in anything by them being seen or known. So for that reason, I guess we're not going to do the panelist thing this time. But don't worry, I'm still thinking of ways to integrate that technology. So definitely planning on doing that a little later in a different way, and even more affordable, maybe even free. So just, just putting that out there and letting everybody know that we haven't given up on that idea entirely of us sitting together in a group and we can all see each other, because I think that would be really nice. All right, so to start out today's session, the flow of today's meeting is to give you more tools and more empowerment to be able to perform your own energy healing autonomously according to the way you want to do it. And that doesn't necessarily mean using the tools that I give you. That just means, or that I'm offering out, it means having the fundamentals established, the constituent parts established, so that you can really move into more advanced levels of using consciousness to create anything, everything that you want. So everything from health to manifesting stuff to everything. So the fundamentals are basically being able to diagnose what's going on clearly, and then being able to provide the transformative energies to produce the effect desired. Those two things. So very simple. So starting with the first, diagnosis is founded on perception, obviously. Perception, we have to be able to see what's going on. So I know that there's a range of participants, and some people feel like they see subtle stuff really well, and other people don't feel like they see anything. And so for everybody, this orientation is to upgrade that. We want to upgrade the capacity to see clearly, to find truth. All truth comes from divinity. Divine being, being the source of creation, is the source of truth. It is pure truth. So for those who feel they have comfortable, easy, effortless access to that, God bless you. For those who feel they don't, the offering is to use the natural relationship between divine being and the physiology, which is basically the manifestation of divine being, to use that natural relationship as the foundation for satisfying the conscious mind, and also for those who have good intuition and feel that they're clear on what's happening, to support your ability to validate or verify that truth from your own angle, from another angle. So you have intuition. Oh yes, my intuition says this, but then I can validate it over here, or I can double cross-check. It's good to have lots of cross-checks. So the first point is, I was going to offer out a suggestion for those who don't see, but instead I did a cross-check and realized that what we need to do actually is to go in and do an activation for all the senses of perception, particularly synesthetic sensory perception, because that's synesthetic sensory experience is like a finer sensory experience. It's like when we experience the senses at the dense level of creation, they're very separated and specified. Seeing is very different from hearing, is very different from tasting. But as awareness takes in the information of the senses, or analyzes, synthesizes and analyzes that information at a finer level, the boundaries start to cross a little bit, because the deeper we go in the field of consciousness, the more abstract, and the more the boundaries tend to blur, and the more everything is just life, pure life force, basically. So looking into everybody's senses of perception, and looking inside the brain, and how the impulses of information that come in through the senses, they go to the various cortices associated with those senses. It all culminates into the thalamus, which then sends it's like the switchboard, sends all the information from the different regions to the appropriate locations. And primarily, we talked about this yesterday, so that it looks like we're going to be doing a deeper healing now for the inferior parietal cortex, which is part of the brain, way in the back of the brain, back here on both sides. Just in front of the occipital cortex. So the occipital cortex is at the very back of the brain, and then right in front of there is the inferior parietal cortex, and that's the screen of life. That's the point where all the input from all the various senses culminate together, and they form that picture of what's going on in the present moment. And the point that came out yesterday was kind of reviewing what I said in my own mind, and realizing the most important point that came out from that section is that we have to understand that life takes lots of different forms. And one of the forms of life is that screen, The screen itself, the fact that the screen exists, the fact that the screen has a reality there is, at a fine level of creation, quality of intelligence that is responsible for the screen. The energy starts as pure bliss, deep, deep inside, almost just at the top of the brainstem. They're these little organs that are responsible for bliss, pure bliss. And they have these pathways that they travel up through the limbic system, and they're hitting next to the pleasure and pain centers, into the thalamus, hypothalamus, pituitary, that area. They come right up into the front of the prefrontal cortex and right up past the orbitofrontal cortex, which is responsible for feelings of achievement and reward, like, oh, I did that. It's like that's the part of the brain that gets really big and thick and activated in gamers, like online computer gamers, because they do the games are oriented so that they get rewards like every so many seconds, and that keeps them going back for the next reward, like that. And so right past that area, and then it curves up like this, and it curves up and back, and it comes back to the inferior parietal cortex. Isn't that interesting? So it kind of like, I mean, of course, it branches out like a tree too. It comes up as a single, stem, and then it branches like that. But if you look at the pathway, it makes a kind of a circle through the brain, and it kind of ends up back there at the inferior parietal cortex. So the open flow of being and awareness through this channel of the mind is responsible for the health and well-being of the screen. And the screen is a key player in the ability to self-position so that your individuality has maximum capacity to create whatever it is that you want to create, whether it's health or manifesting stuff or whatever. The screen. But here's the deal, and this came up at the end of yesterday's session, but it's, again, I'm just picking out like the gems, the best points from yesterday's session, that our interaction with the intelligence of our own being at a deep, deep, very fine level. In fact, our interaction with any part and structure of ourself, even like I use the example of myself saying, I'm going to move my finger like this. When I move my finger like that, I can go, finger, you're going to move like this. Or the relationship between the conscious mind and the finger, which is moving, is one of like, beloved, my beloved finger, and it's in complete, like, when the relationship is like that, then the movement doesn't harm or damage the system in any way. If throughout life all the actions that we do are pushing, and we're making our bodies do stuff, and we're kind of forcing it out, like commanding, it wears and tears on the system. So the principle here is to cultivate a really deeply loving relationship with the self. And the importance of that is that if this is consciously done on the level of how I do my stuff, when I take food, or when I rest, or when I move my body around, exercise, or whatever, if it's done on all those levels, that it's done as a kind of a coordinated, deeply, intimately loving relationship, then that cultivation of that transfers over when we start interacting with the really fine levels of our own being, which necessarily must be addressed on that level only. It's one thing to make yourself do something, make myself wear those little pinchy earrings that look really great, but they really hurt, like that. But you put up with it, but the ear hates it, like that. Or just go with pierced earrings. The point is that You can force only so far. And when there comes a point where you can't force, and when it comes to dealing with the finer regions of your own being, you can't ever force, because these parts of the self may be agreeable up to a certain point, but then the deeper you go, the less tolerance there is for that kind of pushing. So it has to be very, very soft, very, very soft. So that's what's happening. We're going back to the screen. Remember the screen, the source of the screen. So the finest level of the screen, down at that deep, deep level. The thing about the screen and all the other parts of the brain is that they are so highly malleable. Astoundingly malleable. Much more malleable than anybody ever thought. And even neuroscientists say that we modify 70% of our brain every day just based on the experiences that we choose to have or happen to have. But the screen holds the key to the shift in perception. The shift in perception from being isolated into understanding and experiencing only the relative, material, superficial level of creation, and being able to experience all the range and realm of creation, and even that point where the whole range of the relative manifest creation, even down to its finest, melts away, and being is seen as absolutely the only thing that exists. So offering, I'm actually asking divine being, everybody's divine being, the one divine being, which we all share in common. What can we do for the screen? What can we do for this aspect of creation to make it so that truth is transparent, so that truth flows in that area in utmost capability, utmost efficiency, utmost economy? So the answer that's coming back is very interesting. It's orderliness. That's not a big surprising answer, is it? Orderliness, orderliness. And when I'm saying orderliness with my mouth, what's happening is they're clearing, a lot of clearing of illusion. And the clearing of illusion is going back through the ancestral archive. A lot of clearing of illusion. But the orderliness that I'm seeing that wants to establish on the level of the screen is extremely fine. It's like nanotechnology. It's really, really delicate restructuring. And we know that there are structures in the brain, like those dopaminergic pathways that I was referring to, that there are points in them where they're so small. We couldn't see them but under a microscope anyway. They get to be those little ends of the branches get to be very fine anyway. But in the inferior parietal cortex, this orderliness is a reflection of a value of truth, which is originated from the first light of being, the first light of life, the light that underlies all of creation, that is the essential energy that shines through all the manifest level of creation. Because we're dealing with this physical. So we're still in the manifest field to a certain degree. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, I'm seeing it. So what's happening is the structure, and this is just what I'm seeing at this really deep, like microscopic level. The structure is becoming orderly in such a way that it has little tiny spaces that it's like a lattice. so that the lattice is so orderly that it's like a finely made engineering project where the engineering is so orderly and concise that fewer economic, that word economic comes in, that fewer physical elements are needed. And this, I feel as if we're looking down at a very teeny level, like a almost quantum level of the inferior parietal cortex that allows for primarily the space that allows the light of being to shine. Primarily space. So the structure, whatever physical manifest structure is there, it's extremely orderly. And I'm seeing inside people's brains, and I'm just asking if it's possible to extend to any degree to any other structures, physical structures in the brain, where there's any like corruption of the physical structure or mutation or malformation like that, anywhere where orderliness isn't as complete as it could be. The bliss is a player. The bliss is a player. Thank you. Thank you. Another download is coming in, and that has to do with the relationship of love and bliss. And I really laid this out orderly yesterday, but just to quickly reiterate, primordial light of creation is fueled by prana, or breath flow. It's fueled by the flow of creation. So you've got the light of being, which is fueled by flow. But if you only have the light and the flow, then what happens is it just goes like just out of control. And so in order to support the flow of light in such a way that it does maximum good and has most powerful reflection of divine intelligence, it needs orderliness. So on the other side is orderliness and love. But what I'm realizing, the download is that the love, we have to understand that in order for love to be universally applicable or universally accepted, it takes on a shape that's a little bit more like bliss. It's like, almost think of it as a mix between what we think of as love and what we think of as bliss. Because we're dealing with being in forms that are so unlike the physical human or corporeal form. When we're dealing with these advanced topics on energy work, we're not just dealing with people and plants and animals. We're dealing with being in the form of the wind and being in the form of the screen of life. We're dealing with being in forms that cannot be described in words, but all being is the self. All being is who and what you are. And to get into this, the second half of this presentation is on how do we apply. We need to really understand how this is, that we have to let go to a certain degree. There's a releasing mostly mental, emotional bodies, but also in the wiring. Today's session definitely has an overarching theme of the brain and rewiring the brain and rewiring how we think of life. Expanding the definition of what is life. Everything is life. Everything. Everything. Even laws of nature are living. Just feeling a huge download coming in and a restructuring that's moving not even at this point so much through the brain, but through the entire nervous system, because it is the extension of the neural network in the physiology, in the area of like the heart, even the liver, the gut. We have certain areas where, particularly heart and gut, as I've mentioned before, which are really major players in the processing of information. And then that ties in with diagnosis, right? I'm still feeling, it's just, okay, this is what happened. This is what happened, is bringing in, I'm now reporting because it's going on right now, which is that what we wanted secretly, what our beings wanted to achieve, was this flow of healing energy nonstop. That the light of being, the flowing light of being, has enough orderliness and this blissful compassion, empathetic love energy that has to be there with the orderliness, right? Otherwise it just becomes sort of a harsh thing. So these two, it fuels, this is like it's like the energy behind the orderliness, that it's integrated enough that the flow is not stopping. The flow, the healing flow, that means everybody's physiologies, everybody's life, everybody's ancestors, everybody's past incarnations, through you to the whole creation, through you to all of humanity. This is not stopping. And it looks to me like it's not going to stop as the webinar continues. So when that flow happens, like really a lot of stuff happens. And I'm not going to be able to cover all the details of the results of this healing for everybody. But I can, luckily, I have orderliness on my side, so I can stick to these topics and bring in as much as I can as we're going along. But I encourage everyone to enjoy this flow, because these four ingredients together are like a magic combination. And I would like to ask, this is just the direction that the awareness is going, if we apply this flow, or if the flow, the awareness or attention moves back into that inferior parietal cortex and into the process of perception, then can it work directly on that area to expand and clear everyone's perception, so that even those of you who may feel like they don't see anything, or they're kind of dull or whatever, that everything clears. Just it clears for everyone. On this note, I am going to bring in an exercise that I mentioned yesterday, but for those of you who are new today, there are, around the senses of perception, in the face and the head, there are points where they're like mini chakras, where the energy is more concentrated. And so there are, for example, mini chakras in the tips of the fingers. So what we can do is create a self-referral loop of intelligence, where we take the tips of the fingers, and what's happening as I'm saying tips of fingers, everybody is activating. So that means awakening the ability, any blockages to the flow of energy that may be occurring from the tips of the fingers. And of course that all starts, right there at that chakra, and it goes down the arms and out the tips like that. Intelligence associated with the trees is presenting. And again, this intelligence, we can look at it, just a little reference to yesterday's meeting, we can look at it as a being in its own right, separate from the rest of creation. But it's important to know that when you feel that, you can think of it as an overseeing angel of the trees, or a deva of the trees, the intelligence is the main structuring intelligence and creativity behind the way trees grow, is yourself. And as I mentioned before, we already have lots of structures in our body that are tree-shaped anyway, so it's all the self. But that intelligence is presenting its capability in the body. It's sitting right here for everyone in their fifth chakra, and it's supporting the flow of light. It's providing that entity or that being, if you want to call it that, but it's really not that. It's really an aspect of self. The quality of your own intelligence, very subtle quality of your own intelligence, is providing the orderliness that supports the clarification of energy through the whole upper part of the body. And so, of course, that would be supportive for you once this is establishing. It's establishing for everyone. Then anything you want to do with your hands, right? So writing or making art or making music or dancing or cooking or giving people massages or anything. Right now we're going to use it to give ourselves a massage, right? So, right. And I'm double checking, I'm verifying from different points. And I guess at some point it would be good to go into how that's done so that everybody gets a chance. We go into more detail with that. But the point is that tips of the fingers now very activated and very lively. So this is a good time now to take the finger and to touch the first point, which is right between the eyes. And I don't know about you, but you might feel a lot of energy when you do that. Not a heavy duty touch, just even a little bit. In fact, as you come closer, you can feel the energy there. It doesn't even need to completely touch. In fact, the more delicate and tender the touch, like the more the touch isn't really like, but just so you're connected, basically. You just want that connection in there. There, you can really feel how you can activate and enliven the energy in that part of the body, right? It's very cool. I need to talk too. Mouth access. Oh. So, yeah, it feels good, huh? So there's 7. I want to show you 7 points around the eyes. And as we enliven these points together, it will open up and activate the capabilities of the eyes. It increases health for the eyes, but it also supports the ability to receive. Even without my finger there, I can still feel that spot. I don't know about you guys. It's like, anyway. It supports the ability to utilize this particular organ and this particular quality of sense. It's like, it's really a way of loving the intelligence of the eyes and also the finer sense of sight. So that's point number 1. 2 is right here. You can use 2 fingers for that part. And you might find that the different spots like a different amount of pressure. Like I'm noticing that this part didn't hardly want any pressure at all, but these like a little bit more pressure. That's just me. But you might be different, right? So you can experiment with that. I look really silly, don't I? What's that thing you do? Like, hello. Anyway, okay. So then this is point number 3, right at the front of the eyebrows, top of the eyebrows, right at the point where they meet. And there are others. I mean, if anybody out there knows acupressure, there's a bunch of, there's a whole series that go up this way and out through here. And so, but we're just looking at these. These were the ones that were cognized, that were specifically connected to and associated with the opening up or the activation of greater fine perception. Okay, greater ability to see into the subtle realms of creation. So that's why I'm giving you these, but there are bunches of them. You can put your fingers anywhere. It's your person. You can put them anywhere you like. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you get right on the right spot, you usually can feel there's a little more energy there, or you can feel more sensitivity under the skin. 5 is right at the point of the eyebrows, right? So they come up, there's 5. Find the pressure that's most comfy for you. 6. It's at the end. And then this is a change from yesterday. This is a refinement 7. It's right here. This is a refinement. Because the information comes very quickly, and I gave it out, and then it refines. So here, right at the edge. There we go. Oh, that one feels really interesting. I can feel a lot of changes going on inside the head when I put my fingers on this one. Interesting. We know the temples are also a sensitive spot, right? It's like the entry into the brain. I think we need to include that one. That also, I'm feeling a lot of energy in that one too. You can experiment. This is the cool thing about energy work. It's not, it's not a set in stone thing. It's like this organic thing. We are growing it. We are literally growing it together. We are growing this thing together. And it'll keep refining, and it'll keep growing, and it'll keep changing, and it's okay. Anyway, I hope that that's useful for people. Oh, I got some feedback. Hang on. Hey, here's a question. If synesthesia is the characteristic of the screen, does this remind us that the point value of any sensory input through any sensory channel could become the gateway through Sangama to the infinite? Yeah, definitely. And to Sangama. And that every moment of life can be an ongoing contemplation of essences. Nicely put. Nicely put. For example, the pure white simplicity of Earth's cloak of snow could become the all-permeating protective pure innocence of being. The aroma of cardamom could become the freshness of being, etc. Oh, I love it. This is such a beautiful, it's almost more of a statement than a question, but it's just beautiful, isn't it? Yeah, this is obviously this person, this very beautiful, sweet, brilliant person totally gets what, you get it, you get it. This is exactly what I'm saying. And I would say synesthesia is a quality that the screen possesses at like a finer level, that on the superficial level, we're still going to see. It's not like the world, it's not like, for example, my ability to see this mouse just melts and I can't see the mouse anymore, right? That it's still visible, I can still feel it or whatever, but the perception of it as infinitely solid and such isn't at all. And it's true that it becomes, it's like one sees the physical material structure of it, but one also sees the essence structure of it, the essence of its nature. Does this remind us that the point value of any sensory input, of any sensory channel can become the gateway? Yeah, and that's the idea, is that as the screen refines, as it restructures and refines, then every particle of everything that we perceive becomes itself a gateway for the expression of divinity. And it becomes evident that divinity is the only thing that really exists anywhere. That oneness, that being, is the only thing. And all that we see is like, I love the way you use the word cloak. All that we see or experience with our senses is just the cloak that's over top of that being. And then the cloak becomes highly malleable. Then it becomes highly malleable because the paradigm shifts to accommodate the finer perception. And when the finer perception says, oh, everything that we perceive through our senses is like a cloak that just sort of shroud, it just covers this brilliance, which is literally shining in every corner of creation simultaneously, then the mental and emotional body can take on, and conscious mind, belief system, and so forth, can take on the freedom to accept beliefs that allow us to make changes if changes are needed, or allow us to promote and support the changes that the divine is making in order to ever renew itself, to ever rebuild itself, to ever, bring freshness and deeper, more thick, more perfect expression of divinity into the relative, which is ultimately the goal in any case. If we feel like we're focusing, well, I'm just trying to heal this one thing, or I just need to, change my life in this way. I'm trying to move, or I've got someone who's trying to sell a house and so forth, like that. It's restructuring now. We came to a circle, and we came to the point of people's desires. So everybody's desires are dropping into that field, like little drops, little raindrops into the field of divine being. Just communicating with so much love, right? With so much love and intention for life to be more orderly and for it to be more fulfilling. And that's activating the flow of the light. And so I'm feeling another upsurge or another upgrade in the degree or the amount that the light of being is flowing now in the group. So we just leveled up, like we put another wattage in there or something. Nice job. Nice question. I'm not saying anybody's names, but that was a really great question. And we're upping that wattage. We're upping the wattage. And every time we up the wattage, then the hardware needs to be able to keep up. It's just like, it is a little bit like building a computer, and when it's discovered how to make computers more powerful, then you need more storage space on your computer. And so the devices that create storage space become bigger and bigger and more powerful. And I'm not a techie person, so I don't know the names of everything, but you get more RAM and you get more processing power and so like that. And so that requires changes in the hardware. Changes in the hardware. So I'm dropping my awareness into divine being to see how the hardware wants to change in order to support this increasing the amperage of the energy work and the ability to just allow the light of being to flow. So that you just become, here in America, we're coming up on Christmas time. You become like the star in the east, become like a Christmas tree all lit up. So what I'm seeing changing, shifting the hardware, is at a molecular level of the physiology. So that means ancestors. And there have been a lot of belief systems that disallowed for physical changes because it was felt, well, it's either not appropriate to be that cheery all the time, or chaos would ensue in society if people had so much autonomy. If people literally could manifest their desires just like that, oh, noes. That's what my teenagers would say. Ohs, noes. What's happening is the orderliness, the finer realms of creation. Orderliness itself is a being. Orderliness itself is a life force. And when I say a being, that makes it sound like it's separate, but I keep going again. You know me, I'm going to go back again and again. I'm going to say it's your being. Orderliness is a structure of your being. So orderliness, which is a structure of being that starts in the field of pure being, and it stays very, very close to the source of pure being. Because orderliness has to break apart in order for the manifest level of creation to be. Therefore, orderliness is folding in on itself. It's self-referring into its own nature. And it's curling, it's it looks like it's almost massaging, and it's massaging in this loving, empathetic, compassionate bliss energy. Soma. It's massaging in Soma, and the Soma massaging in to orderliness. I'm watching it. It's a very interesting process because the nature of orderliness is also economy or simplicity, right? In order for something, the more simple it is, the more orderly it is, the more bits and pieces there are, the harder it is to maintain a kind of orderliness there. So simplicity, but the thing about it's a belief. We're clearing a belief. We're clearing it at a very deep level, and that is that love is messy. We're clearing the belief that love is messy. And that's clearing from the dense levels of the physiology, and that is clearing from the physical body, that love is messy. Love can be pretty simple. They say love is blind, right? That's kind of reflective of, that's a messy way of saying, of reflecting the simplicity of that love and bliss. And again, I'm seeing the energy of being in the dopaminergic pathways, and that's where the clearing is taken, and that's where the illusion is. That's where the Maya that's being cleared. It's very, very interesting. It is very bizarre, and I'm going to do my best to describe what I'm seeing. Is that this healing that's taking place is for the sake of supporting and promoting your ability to manifest better, to do energy work more efficiently, more profoundly, more powerfully. And it's at the same time creating a shift at the surface level of creation. And it could be that this shift will actually affect Earth. In fact, I'm getting a yes, that it is affecting Earth, but it's definitely occurring at a cosmic level of creation. And it has to do with a deeper diversification of expression in the relative. It appears from here that there is an opening of realms at the level where, like the corporeal level of creation, that are allowing for more diverse expression of life, more diversity, and more range of different realities being able to coexist in the same space-time. That's the main thing. I figured out how to say it. more ability for varieties of different universes, different realities to coexist in the same space-time. Interesting. I can see it. I can see it. It looks like it opens out like a fractal, you know, that the simplicity of being, that oneness of creation is infinitely simple. And it comes up like a tree, and then the tree gets branches, and then it spreads out, and as it goes out to the edges, they become very fine, they become all very, very diversified and so forth. That's where the shift is taking place. And when we think about it, that part of the tree, again, it's the presence of this aspect of our own intelligence that we are getting familiar with in this particular healing session. It's thanks to all of you. You deserve this, and that's why it manifested. And a moment of gratitude for all of you. I wouldn't be blessed by being able to become as familiar as I am with this particular aspect of self if it weren't for the fact that you guys deserved it and manifested it. So thank you. I really appreciate that. But the point is that this particular structure of creation, it's growing. It's like, it's shaped like a tree, and it's an intelligence of being, and it is evolving. And it is evolving with our help. We are like the forest devas that go in. We're actually getting to witness, we're actually getting to be that quality of intelligence. We're getting to experience it. This is what I wanted to share with you guys, is how do you verify from different angles, right? So you identify or associate into that aspect of your being which has the ability to support the growth of trees. Just as an example. This is on many, many levels. What we're doing here is very, very interesting, and I'm praying to God that I can give it to you as clearly as what it is. But you have to understand, at this moment on Earth, we have this global warming crisis. It is a crisis, okay? I mean, unbelievable how the weather's changing in various places of the Earth. The answer is trees. The answer is trees. I saw this big thing by Neil deGrasse Tyson. I trust him. He's my source for this. Anyway, you can look him up if you want, Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's a famous scientist of our current age and day. And I don't agree with every single thing he says, but he did a series called Cosmos and did a big description of global warming. And the answer is trees. The answer is, if we increase the number of trees on Earth, that will undo global warming. So I'm not surprised, but I'm really pleased that we are playing a role today which is supporting the growth of the intelligence of trees, the form, the shape, the tree-shaped forms that are inside our own physiologies, but it absolutely will be supportive for the trees as well. All the trees in our world, all those that are living, and many millions yet to be planted. And we will. That's the way out of global warming. So that's just going to happen. If it's going to happen, that's probably the way it's going to happen. That would be a natural way for it to happen. But getting back to how that, yes, it was the ability for multiple universes to exist simultaneously within the same area of space-time. That little tiny little branches way out at the edges is related to the parts of the dopaminergic pathway that roll around and come back into the screen area of the brain. That's where it comes down to those teeny tiny little, you know, like a single strand of cells, little nerves, little branches of nerves, little very fine, even smaller than cells, moving back into the various parts of the brain to support the experience of bliss and the ability to nurture all the tissues, not only of the brain, but of the whole body, with a quality of bliss which upgrades the body, which makes the body transform, because the body's transforming anyway, right? Like every second of the day, your body is transforming. But what it does is it redirects the transformation in the direction of greater alignment with divinity. And that includes regeneration of the body and health of the body and freshness and energy. It's good. So this is what's happening. And you guys did it. I had the privilege of being your reporter. Thank you. Let's make sure we've covered all the points, shall we? Because there were some pretty juicy points here, especially under topic number 3. And by the way, we handled topic number 1 completely different, mostly differently from how we did yesterday. Other than that exercise with the eyes, I think it was all different. So be sure to check out yesterday's webinar because there was some good stuff in there too. Remote viewing, reading energy patterns outside the range of space-time, and manifesting. Okay, so, and we have 20 minutes. Okay, oh, hi, and a question. Yay, a question. Can you give us points to press on or massage to increase sensitivity and depth of awareness of the subtle hearing? Oh yes, I noticed many of them in the I don't know how to pronounce that word, but cartilaginous structures of the outer ear, right? And of course, we know that the ears are just like packed. They're just packed solid with different points, right? Sensitive points. But here, here, here are 2 points on either side, right there and there. Are two that I'm very sure of. And you should know, for the lady who asked this question, that when I got the download, they're points. It starts out, but I didn't isolate down for all of them because I knew I could only give out so much information but this in front of the ears is one of the spots. And then of course, all these points, and you will find them too. There's zillions of points in the ears themselves, but there's also a point right here behind the ear. There should be a little kind of a slightly bony protrusion, and it's just on the top of that thing. If you put your fingers there, you'll notice there's a sensitive spot there as well. And there, you kind of have to dig around until you find where it's sensitive. And then once you found the sensitive spot, you know you found it. And the thing about this point and these points is that they bypass the actual structure of the organ of hearing, and they speak directly into the auditory cortex, the superior temporal cortex, which is where the auditory input is processed. Thanks for asking. So the structure of the outer ear, the pinna, she calls it, including the back of the ear and all surrounding tissue. Also a lot of buildup of emotional residue of things heard. Oh, wow, that's such a beautiful point. Thank you for adding that. Especially things heard that were resisted, right? And can reside there in the ear structures. So massage of the subtle structures of the ear is very helpful in ameliorating this blockage, both opening subtle hearing and dispersing emotional buildup from the verbal, emotional, mental, human interactions of the past. Great point. And that's exactly, the thing is, consciousness heals, being heals, divinity heals. And everybody has different triggers that get their consciousness activated and going to heal them. So in energy healing, the idea is, this is what I'm inferring from my experience with energy healing, is that divinity, being, wants to find a way that we can all self-heal, that will be really effective and will not depend on anything outside. It won't depend on medicines or surgeries or herbs or anything. You know, that and the reason that I believe has come up at this time is because the state of Western medicine is such that it's not really helping people as effectively as people deserve to be helped. And I'm not saying that Western medicine is bad, because obviously Western medicine really does help people a lot. And when, for some people, that is the seed that they need to get their own inner healing capacity online. Right? So consciousness heals, but if somebody needs the doctor to say, here, take this pill, and this pill will fix you, then they take the pill, and because they really believe the pill will fix them, then that gets their consciousness going, and their consciousness starts to go in and make the changes required. And so in the past, I've sent out this beautiful talk by Dr. Lissa Rankin on Mind Over Medicine, where she's been doing research into the placebo effect for over a decade and found like 34,000 cases in Library of Congress of people healing from literally every known disease to man through the placebo effect, including placebo surgeries. So, the point is that whatever works for you is what you want to use. So if you really adore your doctor and take the doctor's word as the word of God, and you know that if you go to that representation of God to you, and that God says you shall be healed because you will take this pill and it will heal you, then by God, the pill will heal you. But really it's your consciousness that's healing. It's because you positioned yourself, and this gets back to the screen. You positioned yourself to be extremely receptive to that particular input for healing. So in energy healing, what we're doing is we are restructuring the positioning and restructuring the paradigm to receive self-healing as the most powerful healing, as the most useful healing, the healing that has the ability to penetrate most effectively into all parts of the body, and over which you have complete autonomy. And that's the one piece that Western medicine is missing. That in Western medicine, we give our power over, we give our autonomy over to the expert, who of course knows better than we do. And it's possible at this time, and I think necessary at this time, to bring the power back. So thanks for being part of this healing webinar, because I know that in a sense I'm preaching to the choir, obviously, but the videos go out to thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people. So thank you for bearing with me and supporting with that. Right. So on that note, remote viewing. The same lady who asked these two questions, she mentioned this thing about the essence of structures on the relative level of creation, their essence. So this is one of the awareness or perception or recognition that everything has a kind of essential nature is fundamental to the remote viewing process. There is a web of life, a matrix of life, a net of life. I've heard it called the net of life, but it resides, if we're looking at our manifestation screen here, from very subtle to very dense, it tends to come up in this area here, is where the structures of the net of life are. And so it doesn't require absolute refined perception. It only really requires refined perception down just a little bit deeper than the emotional level. In fact, you can access it from the emotional level of the physiology, that when you love someone, and if you think of someone you love right now and you love them, you can feel your love embrace them. You can feel your love embrace them. And the love travels to embrace them through these little cords or threads or streams of consciousness. If you think of someone who's far away and you let your love embrace them, you have essentially traveled to where they are and experienced their essence. So because these beams of consciousness are residing down in this emotional, astral, causal level of the physiology, and yes, I said causal and I meant to say that. I switched names, but what happened is I got a huge download of information about this area of the subtle physiology, and it's kind of changed my paradigm completely on it. So I'm still working with language to figure out a good way to describe what's going on there for everybody. But in any event, the beams of consciousness are threads of feeling. They're threads of feeling. And so consciousness can travel through the thread of feeling and back to the self. And they are actually threads of awareness, pure awareness. Pure awareness. So what's happening is, and I should also say, even though you can pass beams of energy through any organ of the body, I'm just giving you my tips. One of the things I've noticed is that it helps a lot to beam the energy out the palm of the hand. Like a lot of times I like to take walks in nature. And when I see a little, very cute little animal, I like to send it a little beam of love. And what I found was that by doing that, just because it seemed like it would be fun, what happened is I started to discover that, you've seen these hands, these like East Indian hands that have thumbs on both sides, right? And they have like an eyeball in the middle. There is a visual sensor in the palm of the hand. I know there are no rods and cones, but the fact is that you can see from here. And so it started out as just a game that I was playing with the little animals, because they don't run away when you do that. Instead, they're like, "Oh, who are you?" And they'll come over a little closer to see you and stuff. It's really cute. So anyway, we like those little furry beings. But anyway, so the palm of the hand and the eye there, you can beam awareness through. Hello. I'm beaming my awareness through the sensor, through the electronic sensor, through the field, through the net of life to everybody, just seeing everybody. And what is happening is it's beaming to the heart chakras, it's beaming to the 5th chakras, and it's beaming to this one, the 6th chakras. Ooh, especially the 6th chakras light up. So that means that's where it's supposed to go. And I'm demonstrating it, but this is how we start to get to see it. It's like the little child hears the virtuoso musician. I'm not saying I'm a virtuoso or anything, but I'm just saying that, the aspiring musician hears the great musician and thinks to themselves, "Oh, that's possible. Okay, that's possible." And then they aspire also, and then they maybe even become better. Who knows? I mean, I want you all to be better than me, and then you can show me how to do it, which you do, which is so cool. God bless you. Anyway, so this is one way, is through the palm of the hand. And I feel that really helps focus the energy when it goes through the palm of the hand. It helps it focus. It helps it focus. And what happens is when the energy flows, it warms up wherever it lands. So, but it can certainly be done with just awareness. And I'm getting a download right now that I should be suggesting to you that you can practice first in your dreams. Practice in your dreams, because the nervous system functions in a particular way in dream state, which actually facilitates the process. It makes it a lot easier. It's like support. You have supportive nature to do it in dream. If that is to say, one would need to be lucid dreaming, but if you wish to do it, and if you intend to do it, then you structure the circumstances by which it can be done. Therefore, yes, thank you. Thank you. I see everybody checking in with me in your dreams. Oh, that's so adorable. Oh, you guys are more adorable than the squirrels. I knew that. Yeah, you always were. You always were. No, what happened, that was really interesting what happened. And that ties us into one of the next points about moving through space-time. What happened was really interesting. I suggested to you that you do it in your dreams. And then what happened was all of you, in dream state, this is what I experienced. All of you in dream state who did this came back and sent me like a little message from dream state. Oh, I'm doing it, and this is me doing it right now. So what happened was we set it up, and I realize now I set it up in my own dream state that we would do it like this. The physiology is an instrument, right? And what we learn to do is we learn to use the instrument, to play the instrument in a way that we were not able to previously. So there's certain kinds of coherence or brainwave frequencies that dominate at different points in the sleep cycle. For instance, the first period of sleep, delta brainwave activity dominates. That's the 1 to 3 cycles per second. And that's the time when really deep regeneration of the physiology occurs. So the point is that through meditation, through energy work, through different, and I'm not putting energy work on the same level of meditation as meditation, because meditation, very profound, very, very profound. But the point is that it is possible to activate coherence in all the brain frequency ranges, all the time. It's possible to move one's own system into a point where delta brain waves, beta brain waves, alpha brain waves, theta brain waves, gamma brain waves, all the different brain waves are always coherent. This is for you and your dreams. We're doing a dream webinar. That's the dream webinar just rolled out to everybody. So enjoy that. Everybody on this session got an extra webinar. Ooh! But you don't get to cash in until you're in sleep state. Okay, very sweet. Oh, you guys are great. So, functioning outside the realm of space-time. We may as well talk about that for a minute. The entire subtle level of the physiology, and really quite a bit at the subtler levels of the emotional body, mental and emotional bodies, function outside the range of space-time. Anyway, you are already functioning outside the range of space-time. However, the way space-time moves is structured by laws of nature, which reside at subtler levels of being. And here we're going to look a little bit at some of the recent downloads that I got about this. Here at this, I switched the names. I was calling this causal and this spirit, but I switched them out. So I'm calling this now spirit body. But you know, the names are arbitrary. The important thing is that you are the laws of nature. At this level of your being, you are the laws of nature. You are those structures or beings of intelligence. We are like a tribe. Each one of us is the individual antenna, and then there is the tribe. And I put that down there. Welcome to the inner tribe. Welcome to the inner tribe. There is the entire field of all life. And in that field, there are individual areas that specialize. And there is an area that specializes in space-time, in the way space and time interact in order to create the denser level of creation the way it is. And that curvature, that curving space-time that curves around massive bodies, is essentially, remember those four fundamentals that I mentioned earlier? There's the light of being and the flow, and then orderliness, and then that bliss, love, compassion, empathy, energy. This curvature of space-time is more here. It's working in this area, kind of in the interaction between orderliness and the bliss, love. Because ultimately that, and I think I even made a video about it in the past, that gravity is love. Right? So the nature of this aspect of creation is basically extremely loving, extremely sweet. But because it has that orderliness, it interacts with order at a very fine level of creation. It also has a somewhat masculine energy in it, which is nice. Which means that it's also protective. And we know that one of the qualities of gravity is that it's protective. After all, if we didn't have gravity, we'd be all floating out in space right now, which wouldn't be fun at all. So we're being protected by gravity. I'm just letting my awareness go into the space-time curvature of creation. And feeling it. And as far as I go in, as far as I feel, it's only love and love and love and love. So aligning individuality with that, allowing our attention to kind of dive into the field of this intelligence of our own nature, which is the essence of space-time, very deep level of being. And it doesn't, when it manifests out to the surface, it doesn't manifest at all with a physical body, right? Well, I guess we could say stars and planets are physical bodies that master, have a great pull on space-time. So what we're really going into now is the nature of cosmic reality. We're looking at the universe from the perspective of the stars and planets and other cosmic structures, black holes, the great masters of space-time. Unbelievable. It's love, like crushing, right? Just so intense, so intense, so intense that, again, the hardware has to upgrade in order to support the experience of that, which is outside the range of anything that humans are used to experiencing. Saints have experienced it. So the saints have experienced it. And so those individuals of the past who have restructured their physiologies to accommodate a continuous flow of that much love, that much intensity of adoration, are offering. We can use that as a model where, again, we're picking up a thread here, picking up a stream. So from the saints, we follow back to areas of the Akashic record where the blueprints are held of how to restructure the physiology in order to accommodate that much intensity. So blueprints in the archives. Blueprints in the archives, human physiology, and something has to change. What's coming back to me as I go and I look at the blueprint and then I offer what I see into my own divine being is that it's a rather drastic change. It's drastic enough that it requires more like a major restructuring, a little placebo surgery here, little placebo heart surgery. It's a placebo heart surgery for ancestors having to go back multiple generations. Looks like 14 generations, in some cases. In some of you, it's going back 14 generations. It's a lot of generations. Is having to restructure, and of course that is going to affect offspring, but most importantly it affects the present physiology, and it wouldn't be possible at this time if it hadn't been for the growth of the tree, that hardware restructuring of the tree of life aspect of creation that allowed for the superpositioning of multiple realities simultaneously. I'm looking at how it's such a big shift that's taking place that it's affecting the environment as well. The matrix of creation has gone through a lot of nice healings and transformations over the months in this past couple of years now, year and a half that we've been doing these energy healing webinars. And of course, lots of saints and lots of other people which are doing similar work are supporting that growth. But what I'm seeing is a quality of lightness. And I don't just mean like light, like the primordial light of creation flowing through the net of life, but more like a lightness, like a physical lightness, like a buoyancy, which is in there, a buoyancy that's in the net of life, that's allowing, okay, I'm feeling the transformation working its way now into the physiologies. And I know we're a little bit over time, but I really want to finish this because I want you guys, and there's a question too. This buoyancy is restructuring everybody's physiologies now. And at that same level at which the inferior parietal cortex was also structured, like really way down at the quantum level, this lightness. And it's like it reminds me of like fairy wing lightness, like really, in the newspaper article the other day, a man had built a house back in the 1800s and his name was Lily Blade. That was his last name. I thought, oh, that's not a coincidence that this beautiful Davic name came. It was published right there on the front page of the newspaper. Beautiful lily blade. Ah, the great awakening of this intelligence in our physiologies. The question. Dr. Triguna said the finest sense of touch is the finest essence of all the senses, because for all the senses to register their impressions, the consciousness must make contact, that is, touch the object. My favorite form of lovemaking is an all-over body massage for my lover. Oh, that's so sweet. Because it enlivens all those subtle channels of perception. So love on the level of touch is the essence of all contact with creation. Oh, hello. And then, anyway, I'm treating all the questions anonymously. But the person who asked the question revealed themselves. Sweet. That's so sweet. I really did want to say one thing about this, and that is, I know we're over time, but just for 1 second, 1 more minute, and that is when the body, the physical body forms in gestation, in the belly, in the mommy's belly, when it's just this big, it's just a little tiny person, it feels. Research has shown that little teeny weeny people that are just like 2 inches big they feel hot and cold, they feel pleasure and pain, they feel, the movement of mother's body and the beating of her heart and the rhythms of the lungs. It is the first sense actually that forms in the physiology. So I would like to add that I should have known that was you, because I knew that. I thought to myself in the last question, I was like, the language being used here, I don't know. Anyway, it sounds like somebody else. Anyway, yeah, it's the first in the form. So even before the body can hear or see, even before the organs of the head have evolved and developed, the ability to feel exists. And so it definitely is this really powerful, really primordial sense of touch. And you're right, that awareness goes out through those beams of creation and it touches on reality, and then it returns back and you get that perception. Or really what it looks like to me too is that awareness just simply expands through the net of creation and it touches all of creation, and we realize, oh, well, that's also myself. I can touch that. Like I can touch this. There's a candle holder over there. I can touch that candle holder and feel it, just like I can use my own inner senses to feel my liver or to feel my thyroid or to feel, anything that I can't get my fingers, I can't go in there, I can't, but I can feel it with my inner sense. I can feel my thyroid in there. And same with that candlestick. And it's no different when I'm feeling the candlestick over there and I'm feeling an organ inside my body. It's the same feeling. It's the same mechanism. Okay. So we covered a lot today, and thank you all for patiently bearing with me for a few extra minutes. And thank you for all of those who weren't actually physically present today, but who will get to enjoy this recording later on. It's been really exciting to be with all of you. And may the healings and changes that took place in today's session become fully integrated in your physiology, so that henceforth you are a living, breathing presentation of divine being. But more than that, that internally your experience of self is that of a continuous, unfettered flow of divinity, constantly renewing, constantly regenerating, constantly healing anything, even before even before you're aware that, a virus is lurking in the environment, the body has already just healed you from it like that. This is where we're, may it just be so. May it always be so for you. And if it's not, email me and we'll do something about it. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining me for today's session. It's been totally wonderful. I love you all dearly, and I'm so deeply grateful to have you in my life. Thank you.